and welcome to the White Rose Anti-Nazi Resistance game. So this game is fairly simple in terms of the materials you need. It's basically just some dice and a card deck of different kinds of cards. And there are morality cards, and students gain these if they do the right thing. So that's just one thing to kind of consider. This is not a game that takes a kind of morally relativistic view. It views resistance to the Nazis as a good thing. So you just want to kind of keep that in mind. It is saying that there are certain actions that human beings should take, and it has German representations of the virtues on them. When people do the right thing and are able to escape harm from doing the right thing, they get survivor points, and that's an image of European refugees. And then if you do the right thing, but something goes wrong and people notice that you're resisting the Nazis, you get a suspicion point. And the suspicion point counter is this is kind of an organizational chart for how the Nazis marked prisoners, that they typically were in concentration or extermination camps. So you can see if you can read the German, there's different marks you get so that they could easily identify what you were in there for. So if this uses the system that a lot of these games uses, where you roll dice and you count successes, with a 1, 2, or 3 being a failure and a 4, 5, or 6 being a success. What makes it a little different is that no matter how big the group is, you always roll 4 dice. So I suggest that groups should be 4 or less. But if you have a group of 3, someone's got to roll 2. If you have a group of 2, each one rolls 2. But if you have a group of 5, someone won't roll. And the reason is this game should be a little bit harder to emphasize the fact that it is not easy to resist the Nazis within Germany, right? And you need at least 3 successes to pass. So in a lot of these games, if you tie, you re-roll, but here you lose. And again, that's to show how difficult it was to fight the Nazis, and that's one reason we use 4 dice to make sure that we preserve that statistical difficulty. Now, the fourth kind of card that students have are knowledge point cards. And these are gained when they answer questions correctly. And they can spend 2 of these to change 1 failure into a success. And again, this is a little bit different from other games that we've played because usually it's a 1-for-1. Like you spend 1 to make a failure into a success. Here again, it takes 2, with the idea being that it is difficult to fight the Nazis. So there should be a fairly reasonable chance that students will suffer in this game. You need 4 6-sided dice per group. It's helpful, I think, to have a failure and success chart. And of course, it's also helpful to have a dice tray so the dice don't fly everywhere. It also makes it easier to hand out everything because you just put everything in the dice tray, all the different cards. And then typically each round, you ask a question, and I have a set of questions. You can add your own if you like. And there you've got the answer to the question and reminder to take a knowledge card if they gained it. And there's different events that will take place. And I describe the events in the video. And then you're given kind of a moral choice. Right here, you're being asked, do you want to help put a blindfold on the Statue of Justice to protest the Nazis? And you're asked to be lookout. And you have to make a question answer, do you help? And then you make a check if you decide to help. If you have 3 or more successes, you succeed. Otherwise, you fail. If you're successful, this is what happens. You gain a survivor card and a morality card. If you tried to help but failed, you gain a suspicion card and a morality card. If you did nothing, nothing happens. And so, again, this game is making a moral choice. It says some actions are good. It says anti-Nazi resistance is a good thing. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say, but I do want to point out it does assume a clear right and wrong. So if you, and this is pretty much how every single event goes, that if you do something and succeed, you gain a survivor card and a morality card. If you do something but fail, you gain a suspicion card and a morality card. And then if you do nothing, nothing happens. And there are different results depending on how these things go through. Now, another aspect of this game is that it can be used with various videos. So one thing, the White Rose Society actually has a video, and I'll have a list of videos in the Google file that explains how the leaflets are produced. And it was not easy to make these leaflets. And I think this is an important thing to emphasize, is that it's relatively easy to communicate digitally to large numbers of people at once. Producing leaflets is very difficult. And for example, you have to buy paper. You have to type the leaflet after you've written it, and then you have to have a way to reproduce it on the paper. And the government kept track if people bought like a bunch of paper that could get you being informed on. So it was very dangerous. And then of course you had to mail it out. So I showed them this video, the students, and I talk about it. And then I asked, do you help with this process? So there are moments when it's good to integrate this with videos that explain how things go. And I'll try in the instructional or in the in-class video, I'll go into that in detail, but you can show the videos or not show the videos, but I'll have some links. And again, it's the same thing. You make a check. So to figure out what happened to you, you had the students count their survivor and suspicion points. And if they have more survivor points than suspicion points, they escape arrest and survive the war. So basically, they just were really good at avoiding suspicion, so no one realizes they were connected to the White Rose. If they had the same number or more suspicion points as survivor points, though, they have to make a check. If they have at least 3 successes, and this is done with 4 dice, they are arrested but only sentenced to hard labor for lack of evidence. If they have less than 3 successes, they're arrested and executed. And then there's the question, if you did they feel like they behaved morally? If you have at least 6 morality points, you have no regrets about your actions and are content. 4 or 5, you feel like you could have done more but are basically content. 3 or fewer, you're a broken person racked with guilt. And the idea here is that it's hard to do good. You can get in a lot of trouble for doing the right thing, but there's also a penalty for not doing the right thing. And you can play around with these numbers to try and make it either more or less severe, whatever you think is appropriate for your class. So in terms of reflections, it's good to have the students kind of think about, what was the fate? Does that think appropriate? And why or why not does that seem like an appropriate fate for you based on your actions? And what did they learn about German anti-Nazi resistance from the simulation? And it's not meant to be a particularly deep lesson in the sense that there's a lot of detail. It's just that this was really hard. It is very hard to resist a dictatorship.